Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Doucet, and I am a representative of the Louisiana Archaeological Society. I'm here tonight to share with you the results of the 2017 field season and 2018 public workshops of the LAS field project at the Lake St. Agnes site. The project was supported by the Louisiana Archaeological Society and the Dupuy family, who own the property where the site is located. The project, we feel, was a huge success based on this support, as well as the many volunteers who participated in the project. An important goal for the LAS with this project was to make all aspects of it accessible to the general public. I'll share background information on the site, then talk about our work in the field and our findings. I'll also share images of the public workshops we held to process the artifacts from the site. As you can see from the introductory slide, I am one of several co-directors of this project. The Lake St. Agnes site is located in Avoyelles Parish, Louisiana, which is close to the middle part of the state. It lies within the community of Bruyette, which is about 11 miles northeast of the city of Marksville. It is a prehistoric site, a prehistoric multi-component earthen mound site dated to about AD 700, and the most prominent feature is earthen mound. The site is situated near two major rivers in Louisiana, the Red River, and at one time the Mississippi River meandered much nearer to the site than its present day location. Here's just another map of the site itself with showing you the location in the state, as well as that tiny little red dot where the site is located. The body of water, or the image just above the site and slightly to the left, is actually Lake St. Agnes. The site was first recorded in 1939 by an archaeologist living in the Marksville area, Robert Neitzel. Mr. Neitzel, at times accompanied by James Ford, was responsible for recording many prehistoric mounds in that general area. The next activity at this site took place in 1972 when Alan Toth, who was with LSU at this time, undertook excavations at the site. The 1972 Toth excavations included removing a quarter of the southwestern corner of the mound and excavating 3 test units in the area west of the mound. We're still looking for his notes on those excavations in the area west of the mound, which are relatively important to our work, but we haven't found them yet. Here we see Duke Rivette, young Duke Rivette, on the left excavating a feature at the site during the Toth investigations, and Dr. Bill Haig on the right inspecting an exposed feature. In 1988, another group of archaeologists, Malcolm Schumann on the left there and Dennis Jones on the right, mapped the Lake St. Agnes site as part of their survey work with the Louisiana Division of Archaeology. In 2003, Dr. Chip McGimsey, shown in both slides here, both photos here, placed a core through the mound to gain information on construction phases and to determine how much soil the Native Americans used to build the mound. From his work, we know there was about 345 centimeters, or a little over 11 feet, of soil added to a natural levee and that the mound was constructed over a relatively short period of time. Dr. McGimsey acquired a piece of burnt cane from one of the bottom levels of the mound, I believe from one of the Toth investigations, maybe not, and sent it off for carbon-14 dating. The results of this test determined the base of the mound dated to about AD 700, roughly 1300 years ago. In 2008, Dr. Janice Listy examined skeletal remains from the 1972 excavations, the Toth excavations, as part of her dissertation. Dr. Listy looked at pathology of specimens from the Coles Creek and Mississippian time periods. She found the overall pathology load to be low, but did find evidence of calculus and periodontal disease. She compared her data from the Lake St. Agnes specimens to other data from contemporaneous populations in the lower Mississippi Valley and determined that the diet for both time periods represented so far at Lake St. Agnes was based on hunting and gathering locally available resources. These previous investigations at the Lake St. Agnes site are available in LAS Bulletin number 29 for the year 2002. You can buy this bulletin on the LAS website or meet up with Dennis Jones, who has extra copies of it. In 2010, Tulane University faculty, Dr. Chris Rodning, and two graduate students, Jair Mehta and Brian Haley, both who have PhDs now, visited the Lake St. Agnes site. Their investigation included geophysical survey, sediment coring, and downhole magnetic susceptibility testing in the mound. Tulane also used LIDAR data and gradiometer survey data to gather information on the site layout. Dennis Jones with the Louisiana Archaeological Society also participated in part of this Tulane investigation at the site. This contour map of the site was taken from the Tulane work and depicts the anomalies discovered during their investigations in 2010. Just to orient you to what you're seeing here, this is the mound, and here are the 1972 Toth excavations in the mound in the yellow. The legend at the bottom right tells us what each of the colored features are. These blue dots are what could be pits or middens, according to Tulane. The green dots are possible unburned features, and the red dot here is a possible burned feature. The Louisiana Archaeological Society was the next group of archaeologists to work at the Lake St. Agnes site. For some time, the LAS Executive Committee discussed returning to the field with the goal of offering field and lab opportunities to our members and the general public. Simultaneously, Mr. Mark Dupuy Jr. was in contact with the LAS Executive Committee to inquire about planning more work at the Lake St. Agnes site to build upon the Tulane work in 2010. Mark was convinced that the site had much more to tell the archaeological community about sites of this kind in Louisiana. Mark subsequently made us an offer we found hard to refuse, his support as well as accommodations for any field work that we would agree to undertake. So in 2017, we decided to make this happen. LAS utilized several means of getting the word out to the public about the research project. We announced the opportunity to participate in an archaeological project via the LAS website and social media outlets. LAS local chapters promoted the project during their regular meetings, and the Marksville Weekly News published an article each week in October 2017 in celebration of Louisiana Archaeology Month. And two of those articles were on the Lake St. Agnes site and our project. The LAS project at the Lake St. Agnes site focused on the area west of the mound. We tied our work into that of the two-lane investigation, and our plan was to ground truth the two-lane anomalies in the area west of the mound. We would accomplish this by shovel test, soil probes, and then eventually excavation units. Our goal was to further assess what might be going on in the area west, immediately west of the mound, in what two-lane hypothesized could be a plaza based on the lack of anomalies present, as well as we also wanted to investigate the area west of this potential plaza, which two-lane hypothesized could be a village area. Here is two lanes contour map of the Lake St. Agnes site showing the areas that I just discussed. The LAS project would focus on the plaza and the plaza area and the village area. The mound may still contain a fair amount of cultural remains that we were not equipped to deal with in the short period of time that we planned for this project. And much of the work that has already gone on for the Lake St. Agnes site has been done in the mound. So we decided to expand the work on Lake St. Agnes by focusing on the areas immediately west of the mound and then the areas continuing westward. The general public were invited to participate in two brief phases of field work. Phase 1 was survey and testing, and phase 2 was excavation. The volunteers for the first phase of the project were Sarah, starting from the left, Sarah Cody, Valicia Bergstrom, myself, Paul French, Valerie Feathers. I know her as a different name, but she's married. And of course, our great guy, Johnny Guy, who participates in so many LAS activities. Survey and testing took place from October 16th through October 20th of 2017. The excavation phase of the project took place October 30th through November 3rd of 2017. Here is a photo of the crew and visitors on the last day of work at the site. Included are the Dupuy Juniors, Miss George Alice and Mark Jr., accompanied by Dr. Chip McGimsey in the very front row there. The back row is Sarah Cody, and we had some representatives from the Louisiana Division of Archaeology, Rachel Watson, and at the time, Ashley Federoff, who has moved on since then. And then Paul French here, and we have Emily Dale here, Valicia Bergstrom, and we had a local volunteer, Jenny Inararity. She is from the area and saw the news about our field project and volunteered for it. And then here is myself, and Michelle Smith, and then our go-to guy, Johnny Guy, in the back there. Here's the two-lane map we initially used to plan our first phase of field work, along with the LAS activity at the site. You can see here that our shovel test, which are these green dots. The shovel test are the square green dots, and then the round dots, or the round green dots, or the soil probes. You can see here that our shovel test and soil probes were nearly atop some of the two-lane anomalies. This larger green dot here, and these blue dots here, and this red dot over here, which was a possible burn feature. We realized something may be amiss when we put the shovel test in the area of the two-lane possible burn anomaly, this red dot here with our shovel test here. And we found nothing to indicate a large burn area. And by rights, we should have found something. We reconvened that evening and to discuss these findings, or lack thereof, especially in that last area. We were able to find stuff all in the other area. So as far as we knew, we were hitting those two-lane anomalies. Paul French began looking at things, and he got into some GIS wizardry, which I don't even pretend to understand, on the two-lane map, and managed to correctly align the LAS grid to the two-lane map. Here is a close-up of the LAS field work with the realigned two-lane features. You can see that we did hit a couple of the two-lane anomalies, like these pit features here, and you can see that with our shovel test and our soil probes, and we were on the very edge of what might be a large burn anomaly according to two-lane. We hope this overlay will provide future investigations into these anomalies with more precision if we or others return to the site to investigate further, to investigate these areas further. Here is another image to give you a better understanding of oh, I probably should have clicked on all of these to give you a better idea. So here we are. Here's another image to give you a better understanding of the LAS field work in relation to the two-lane site areas. So here, just going back for a moment, is this large, oddly shaped area with all the lines through it is a potential sheet midden. And we classified it so because we found artifacts throughout this, no matter where we were doing shovel tests and or soil probes, it yielded some information. And here again is the LAS work, all these green dots with the circles inside of them, and green squares with the circles and with the squares inside of them, showing you where our work was in relation to the two-lane areas they outlined from their 2010 work: the mound area, the potential plaza area, and the potential village area. So what did we find? We found an array of artifacts, including faunal material, charcoal, fired clay and daub, which I don't have a little picture of, lithics, ceramics, which were by far the largest material class. Of course, no excavation is complete without complications. Like any good archaeological investigation, we found a human tooth on the very last day of work. Luckily for us, that was the day that the Louisiana Division of Archaeology, accompanied by the state archaeologist, had scheduled a visit. So we had a short period of time to wait before Dr. Chip McGimsey showed up and assessed the situation. And since the tooth appeared to be the only human remains we found, and likely not associated with a burial or other human remains. Dr. McGimsey instructed us to rebury the tooth in the pit after our excavations were done. To begin processing the artifacts after we did the field work, we opened up this process to the public. We held the Louisiana Archaeological Society, supported by some of our partners, held several public workshops to aid in the recordation, the identification, and the classification of the recovered materials. The workshops took place throughout 2018 and were free and open to the general public, as well as, of course, LAS local chapter members, and basically anyone else who wanted to participate. Valerie Feathers and I led a workshop focused on sorting and cataloging the artifacts. Rich Weinstein, you see him on the left here in the middle, accompanied by Jim Fogelman on the right, who's a longtime LAS member and former officer of the state organization. And then Duke Rivette here, who has been a longtime member of the LAS and also served his career in the Louisiana Division of Archaeology. The three of them, mainly Rich Weinstein, led the ceramic analysis workshop with the assistance of Paul French, Duke Rivette, and Jim Fogelman. You can see Paul over here at the table. Rich brought this incredibly amazing type collection from the coastal environments coffers, and the participants in the ceramic analysis workshop were able to use this type collection that Rich had poured over to compare the stuff that they were looking at from the Lake St. Agnes site. So the groups were divided into these different tables, and whoever was at that table worked as a group, and each were given bags of strictly decorated or otherwise definable ceramics from the LAS Lake St. Agnes site. And so each table would work as a group and compare what they had from the Lake St. Agnes site with the type collection on the table. And Rich and some of the other more knowledgeable people about ceramics in this time period would walk around and assess the correctness of the assessments from the different tables of people. Lastly, we held a workshop to understand what information you could get from the plain body sherds. Sherds that weren't part of like the rim or the handle or the base of a ceramic, which does give information on the type of vessel it was, perhaps even on the time period from which it came. But Chip McGimsey, again, state archaeologist, Dr. Chip McGimsey, led this workshop on the information that you can glean from plain body sherds. This workshop was co-hosted by the LAS partners and executive committee members, as well as hosted by the U.S. Forest Service offices in Pineville, Louisiana. The previous two workshops were held at the Rural Life Museum in Baton Rouge, which is affiliated with the LSU University in Baton Rouge, and they were very gracious to offer their archaeology lab for just sorting through the artifacts and recording the artifacts in a form that is approved by the Louisiana Division of Archaeology, as well as allowing us to use their presentation room to hold the ceramic analysis workshop. So we had wonderful support from the just the different offices in Louisiana that love to be a part of the archaeology in Louisiana. Among the recovered lithic material, about just under 400, there were dart points with 2 identified as alba points, a late woodland to a Mississippian point. There were intentionally modified bifaces and intentionally modified cores. The largest group of lithics came in the form of debris, which accounted for about 57% of the recovered lithic material. Shatter, including fire-cracked rock, accounted for about 36% of the recovered lithic material. Ceramics, of course, comprise the large majority, 81% of the recovered artifacts, all of which were Aboriginal, no historic ones mixed in. Of the recovered ceramics, only about 11% were diagnostic, meaning they either had a decoration or formed some part of a vessel that would tell us something more. The remaining 88% were non-diagnostic or plain body sherds. We, of course, again, use the term diagnostic to describe a sherd that's decorated in some way, either incised, stamped, or otherwise decorated, or is part of an identifiable vessel feature such as a base, a handle, or a rim. Most of the non-diagnostic sherds, as I said, and unsurprisingly, were undecorated or plain body sherds. Here are the diagnostic ceramics broken down into decorated versus undecorated or plain. Here in the chart, for the purposes of this chart, plain is classified as diagnostic because these ceramics represent a vessel feature but are not decorated. So part of that diagnostic group, but just no design. The body sherd category in this table represents decorated in some way. I think that's not all too confusing. Ceramic assemblages included Plaquemine, Coles Creek, Marksville, and Baytown Plain, placing our results, the results of the LAS 2017 field project within the Woodland and Mississippian periods. Baytown Plain was the most prolific type, followed by Coles Creek, then Plaquemine, and finally Marksville, in order of abundance. Of the over 2,200 sherds, ceramic sherds present, 45 were classified as indeterminate based on their lack of distinguishing characteristics. Some diagnostic sherds for the Woodland period included alligator incised, Baytown Plain, this one with a notched rim, so we consider that diagnostic. Marksville incised, Marksville stamped, Evansville punctated, French Fork incised, and Mazik incised. The sherds for the Mississippian period were few and consisted primarily of Plaquemine brushed, which I don't appear to have a slide of, and small quantities of Anna incised, Leland incised, and Mazik incised. So to sum up our analysis of the Aboriginal ceramics, many of the analyzed types and varieties from our field work at the Lake St. Agnes site fell into the Woodland period, a number from the Coles Creek culture, which is typical for this site type. Our ceramic analysis did not turn up any shell-tempered paste. All were grog-tempered, keeping us firmly in the Woodland period. The large potential sheet midden is also a familiar woodland period Coles Creek culture feature. And the recovery, sorry, and the recovery of the Coles Creek material is typical for this site type. Now, what does all of that mean? I'm not too far behind you in this. Let's circle back to our goals. We focused on the area west of the mound and ground truthed the two-lane anomalies by employing shovel tests and soil probes and excavations to determine what was happening west of the mound. In 2011, archaeologists at Tulane hypothesized there could be a plaza in the low-lying area immediately west of the mound and perhaps a village area west of the potential plaza area. Unfortunately, we can neither confirm or refute these hypotheses by Tulane based on our findings, partly due to the fact that we spent such a relatively short amount of time out there, and we did not, at that time, anticipate a more involved study of the area west of the mound, but we hope to in the future. We can, but such is the nature of archaeology. You try your best, you run into a lot of obstacles, which we certainly did. You do what you can, and then you move on. We can definitively say that the recovered material from our work at this site dates from the late Marksville period through the Plaquemine period, or woodland through Mississippian for a much higher category, based on the ceramic chronology and the small amount of recovered dart points. We cannot allude to the current discussion of the mound and its construction, as we did not excavate that area or investigate it in any way. We can confirm the presence of the two-lane anomalies. However, we were not in the field, as I stated earlier, long enough to determine their significance or investigate them fully, as squirrel season was upon us, and pretty soon we had to make room for other occupants of the Dupuy land camp. But it was very kind of them to share it with us before squirrel season began. The site sits on 9 acres of land owned by the Dupuy family, but the delineation is arbitrary, and only about 2 acres of that arbitrary delineation have been investigated. The LAS officers and participants in the project, we discussed it, and we proposed the next step would be to delineate the site to determine its cultural boundaries, not the arbitrary boundary of the easement that it currently sits on. Once this is done, there's been more than enough work at the site to show its significance, and it can be considered for nomination to the National Register of Historic Places, which it certainly deserves. Additionally, geoarchaeological testing should be performed across the site to identify other anomalies, especially in areas away from the mound, because there's even evidence of cultural activity east of the mound, where currently there's a small copse of woods there that we did not investigate, just saw some stuff on the surface. And all of these areas need to be delineated to help us determine the spatial layout of the site. Lastly, the two-lane anomalies should be fully investigated to determine their meaning and significance in relation to the site and the people who live there. At the time we undertook this project, Mr. Mark Dupuy was certainly among us and hosted us very finely while we were out in the field both times. We enjoyed quite a visit by his great-grandchildren during the second phase of work at the site, which was excavation. And as the report becomes more fleshed out and available, we'll have pictures of the field trip that the Dupuy Jr., Mark Dupuy Jr. great-grandchildren took at the site, and it was quite fun. We would like to, the Louisiana Archaeological Society and our partners would like to dedicate this presentation and the subsequent publication to Mr. Mark Dupuy Jr., who is no longer with us. He graciously allowed us not only to excavate on his land, but offered us the hospitality of not just his company, but the camp used by hunters and now archaeologists. His generosity and passion for the field of archaeology will not be forgotten. We, of course, would also like to thank the many volunteers who participated in the project, for whom the project would not have been as much of a success and fun as it was without them. Here are just a few references to draw upon, obligatory, for this kind of thing. And a big thank you with a sunset photo of the Lake St. Agnes site. Thank you very much.